What a glorious natural rock setting this is. It's actually some rocks beneath a house. And what we're going to do is show you something, a wonderful piece of fantasy. See, these days, with the new technology that they've invented for swimming pools and all sorts of other effects, you can actually put ponds, garden ponds in, join them up to existing rocks, and they don't need to leak water. So what we're going to do is have water cascading down the natural erosion cutouts in these rocks, both sides here, into a large pond at the bottom. Now, if you're wondering how we get water up the top without running an ugly pipe over the face of the rocks, if you look up the back there, we've already got the pipes in. There's a little cave, just as luck would have it, running underneath here. And in there, we've already got power and water pipes and everything else, all there. So we're ready to start excavating the pond and then looking at how water will flow over these glorious natural rocks. Well, the basic pond area is now fully excavated. You'll notice we've got formwork around the outside and we're preparing for the concrete. Notice all the pipes that go to the pump and the filter and all that are in. This actually is the septic pipe, in other words, goes down to septic tanks from the house. And under that one, that slightly whiter pipe, that's the I don't know what it's for pipe, and this is terribly important if you're putting in pathways, driveways or anything. Every so often you should put a 75 or 100 mil plastic pipe under it, because you can bet as soon as you put something concrete in, you'll want to run something through there and there's no way of doing it. So at least one of these major pipes is the I don't know pipe. I don't know what it's for, but you can bet it'll be for something when you put it all together. Now, this pond might look absolutely gigantic now, but remember, no pond is ever big enough. Once you start putting in your concrete, dressing around them, all the rest, they shrink. And when you start off, you think it's far too big. At the end, you think, oh, gee, I wish I'd made it bigger. So always err on the big side. This will all be concreted, and then hopefully we start the business of trying to make it look like a natural pond. Once it's done in concrete, it'll look pretty terrible, but these days there's ways of making it look natural. One of the important things to do before you put your final layer on is to coat it with something that's a waterproofing agent and a bonding agent, such as this Megalastic. That's best just sort of brushed on, let go tacky, and then you're ready to put your final coat of cement, sand, cement mix or whatever. Now, what I'm in the process of here is coating the concrete shell. Now, this is basically just a sand cement mixture, but instead of adding straight water, we've put a little bit of black oxide in the water. Not a lot of it, just a little bit, enough to sort of kill that whitish colour of this mix when it dries. And of course, it's really good. This is mud pies. Any little kid would love to get involved in this. And really, kids can do this job. It's quite straightforward. So basically, you're just slopping it on. And of course, since we're going for a natural look, you don't want the finish to be sort of all that special. The next stage is to look at the natural colours of your rocks. Now, you might notice in this rock here, there's lots of patches of yellowy green, the sort of brownish colours. When you look at this floater, and that may be all you've got in your pond is some floater rocks, you'll notice there's reds in them, and there's even reddish colours up through this natural rock here. This concrete mix here, or sand cement mix, is just starting to go off. So once it's starting to go off, you're ready to work it. But you're not aiming for one uniform colour, you're aiming for sparks of the colours that you get in natural rocks. Now, you don't need much oxide, there's already a hint of black in this, so what we're going to do is just run some lines of red just through various areas here on the natural rock. Green here. The next bit is we use a sponge. We're just going to smear a bit. So you've got smears of red, smears of green, looks terrible. Now, the next stage is the dabbing stage. Now, this is where you start to mix the colours together. You'll still get areas that are more green and areas that are more red. Now, I'll show you another trick. The thing that's sort of anti-red or anti-green is just a touch of yellow. The dabbing action gives you a lovely natural mottled look that you get in rocks. The last stage, this is sieved blue metal dust or crusher dust, but you could use any greyish sort of sand or whatever. What I'm going to do is throw this into this surface, and what it does is give you a fabulous texture, but it also gives you a bit of subtlety. There's that. And if you want a little bit of a highlight, you can use whatever's available in your local area. This is known as red bricky sand. So this is the sort of sand they use for bricklaying. It's a reddish sort of a sand. So again, particularly around some of these zones, you don't worry that this is a bit thick here, that will wash off. We've got a nice range of colours there. We've brought it back to neutral colours, but there's highlights of reds and greens. Now, when you're building a pond, there's only two things that matter. First of all, that it doesn't leak. Nearly all ponds in Australia leak, and most of them finish up empty and rather terrible. We've gone to enormous lengths here to make sure that this is waterproof. The other bit that matters, and this is even more important in a way, are the edges. Your eye is always drawn to the area where the water stops and the garden or whatever it is starts. If you can see the edge, 9 times out of 10 you've got a horrible looking pond, unless it's a formal pond where you want to see the edges. But in the natural ponds, edge is everything. So this is the last bit now, and the soil has dropped a little bit here. So what I'm going to do is build the soil levels up and then plant some little spillover plants along here. And what they'll do is break up this edge. It just looks a bit fake and a bit too straight. So first thing is rake the mulch back. Now, I've planted a couple of grevillea ground covers just to soften the edge, spill over. The bits in the water will sort of die off, but then the rest of it will spread around and it'll look quite nice. This is a very interesting little plant I'm putting in here though. This is a type of lomandra. It's just a species, confertifolia, great in semi-shade, great in full sun, and it's just a grassy tussocky thing, but unlike most grasses, it doesn't get too much of the dead stuff in amongst it. It stays a lot greener. So what we're trying to do, I suppose, with these plants is just create that natural reedy look that you get normally on the edge of water. Well, the waterfall is now running. How good does this look? You would swear this was a real waterfall in nature. In fact, it is like a real waterfall. I'm getting soaked. Natural stuff like this, it's just put and look. We've got little maidenhairs in there, lots of other ferns. It's really established very well. I'm quite pleased with the way this has turned out. Now, the last stage that we've got to do is up the top. Where the water runs out up the top, it's actually all piping and everything else. We put some rocks over the top of it to hide it. And then I'll sneak some little plants in around those, and hopefully that too will look as natural as this does. We've just got a lovely little planting hole here. I've put a rock in the front, so it's almost like a pot. And if I can manage to do this without falling to my death, I'll now put a bird's nest fern, or if you're from Queensland, crow's nest, into this hole. Now, what I'm going to do next is plant some reedy sort of water-loving plants in holes in the rocks around here. Now, what I've done is sort of, they're plasticky pipes that are feeding all this waterfall. I've put some holes in them. That's very naughty. But the holes create leaks. The leaks give water for the plants. And what I'm doing first of all is to put some fly wire in the bottom to stop the potting mix or soil or whatever washing down into the system. So that's just purely to stop mess. Then I'm going to plant some little plants in there, and hopefully they're going to look very nice. Now this little plant I'm putting in is a real cutie. It was sort of discovered up in the mountains in New South Wales. It's an isopogon, which means it's a native plant, and it has gorgeous white flowers, and it grows in the vicinity of waterfalls. And it'll get its roots here into this water. It's got all the humidity from this. This should absolutely do very, very, very well here. It's a cute little plant though, isn't it? Isopogon fletcheri, but it's sold under the name of mountain mist. The way you would plant something like this is leaning out for the light, which is exactly how it would grow in nature. So you don't put it in up like, sort of upright like Jackie like that. Bang, lean it out a bit. How good does that look? Absolutely fantastic. Maybe you don't have a rock face like this, but if you're lucky enough to live in one of the bush blocks where you've got a rock face, imagine doing something like this. Gosh, I reckon soon dozens of young couples will be coming here to get married. People will be going over this in barrels. It's going to be awesome.